हरिः ओं श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। ॐ वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। A warm welcome to all my fellow seekers to today's Satsanga session on Panchadashi by the great Saint Vidyaranya Swami. We are studying the 7th chapter titled Tripti Deepa Prakarana, implying this chapter will illumine or enlighten us about Tripti. What is Tripti? Is it merely the English word contentment? Tripti is a combination of two factors. It is a state of being where there is freedom from all types of pain, sarva dukkha nivritti. It is also a state where there is purna sukha prapti. Therefore, studying and internalizing the wisdom of Tripti Deepa Prakarana will guide us to that state of dukkha nivritti and sukha prapti. That is a state of purnatvam or jivan muktihi. We started studying the text proper in the last class, covering verses 1 to 20. In today's class, we are going to study verses 21 to 36. Since this is a satsanga, the audience is welcome to unmute and clarify their doubts after each presentation. Now, I request Dr. Anupama Shetty to help us recap what we learned in the last class. Over to you, Anupama ma'am.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. As we have just heard, we are doing the 7th chapter of Panchadashi, a recap of verses 1 to 17. Here, Vidyaranya Swami explains a thought-provoking mantra from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Atmanam ched vijaniya ayam asti iti purusha kim icchan kasya kamaya shariram anusanjvaret. Essentially, it is Atma Jnana Janya Jivan Mukti or Tripti. Today's verses will explain the first line, focusing on the meaning of the word Purusha. So, who is this Purusha? Purusha is the Jiva. How did this Jiva come into existence? Both Jiva and Ishvara are the Pratibimba Chaitanya or the reflected consciousness. How did this reflected consciousness form? It is formed from the original consciousness, the Kutastha, which descends from the Paramarthika to the Vyavaharika level as an avatara. And who provides the reflecting media? Maya Jiveshau Karoti. How? Abhasena, by creating the Vyashti Jiva and the Samashti Ishvara. Now, Ishvara creates the objective universe by Ikshana. This is a visualization of creation mentally. Next is the formation of this reflection in the Sukshma Shariram called Anupravesha. With this, the Jiva manifests. What does Jiva do with this universe? He creates sorrow out of it with his Raga, Dvesha, Kama, Krodha. So we have now heard three words, Kutastha, Jiva, and Ishvara. How do we remain as Advaitins? Remember, Kutastha is the only Paramarthika Satyam. Maya and Avidya are, this goes back to the picture if you can. I'm explaining the figure. Yeah, that's right. Maya and Avidya are the Vyavaharika Satyas. Maya Pratibimba Vyavaharika Satyam is Ishvara. And Avidya Pratibimba Vyavaharika Satyam is Jiva, the Purusha or the Chidabhasa. Remember, this Chidabhasa cannot exist independently of the Kutastha. It is only a lesser reality. Therefore, the Jiva should know the Kutastha as himself. Atmanam ched vijaniya ayam asmi iti. So, who am I? Next slide, please. Each and every one of us, the Jivatma or Purusha are a combination of the Sakshi Chaitanyam which we've called the Kutastha, the intellect or the mind, which is in our body, and the reflection of this Kutastha called Chidabhasa. So, what do I mean when I say the word Aham? The word Aham has three meanings. The primary, the Mukhyartha, also called Vachyartha, used by Ajnanis who are unaware of the Kutastha or the original consciousness. And there are two secondary meanings, also called the Bhaga, Tyaga, Lakshyartha. When one becomes Chidabhasa Pradhana, he is an Ajnani or a Samsari. Aham for him is an indistinguishable mixture of the original consciousness and the reflected consciousness. He remains entangled in this cycle of Punarapi Jananam and Punarapi Maranam. The Jnani, on the other hand, only uses the secondary meaning of the word Aham. He has Atma, Anatma, Viveka. In Laukika Vyavahara, Aham to him is the body-mind complex with Chidabhasa, and in Vaidika Vyavahara, Aham is the Chit. This is only an intellectual separation. This Jnani does Tiraskara, or he ignores, he does Tyaga of the reflected consciousness or Chidabhasa. The Adhisthana, he is a Kutastha Pradhana, and he has Drikpradrishya, Atmane, Anatma, and Chit, Chidabhasa, Viveka. This Jnani knows that it is the original consciousness that has taken avataram as the reflected consciousness and is now the Jiva. Mama eva amsha Jiva loke Jiva bhuta sanatana. Reflected consciousness and the original consciousness are physically inseparable. Yatra yatra abhasa chaitanyam, the Jiva, tatra tastra adhara chaitanyam, the Kutastha. Therefore, for him, Jivo Brahma Eva Naparaha. So, in the words of the Jnani, I, the original consciousness, the Kutastha, and the substance behind the reflected consciousness, the Chidabhasa. I, the Kutastha, have a Mithya Chidabhasa as my medium. My knowing faculty is an attribute of the Chidabhasa, and therefore it is Mithya. The acquired knowledge is also Mithya, and this Mithya knowledge gives liberation from samsara, which is also Mithya. Is samsara Mithya or Satya? If samsara was Satyam, it would have been eternal and it would never go. Moksha is elimination of Mithya samsara. So if liberation got from knowledge is also Mithya, what is the purpose of all the sadhanas, the Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana that we are doing? We must know that Mithya liberation, although Mithya, removes samsara, and thankfully this samsara is also Mithya. Here is a cascade of Mithyatvam. My Mithya Chidabhasa gives me Mithya knowerhood. This gives me Mithya knowledge. And this Mithya knowledge gives me Mithya liberation from Mithya samsara. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anupama. That was an excellent recap of some 17 verses which we covered in the last class. I'm sure because this is a very important picture that she has given in this first slide. See, Kutastha means the original consciousness, that is Paramarthika. Now, Vidyaranya Swami is explaining the word Purusha should know the Kutastha or the original consciousness. Now, in order to know what is Purusha, you have to bring in Maya. Maya has got two components, or Avidya. Because of Avidya, the individual is born, and because of Maya, the Ishvara is born. Now, that means all of us, the Jiva is the one who is having samsara and having all the problems. Now, I will open it for anybody to ask Dr. Anupama or me the clarity and about what we have studied so far in 1 or 2 minutes.
Sir, in one of the slides, it was shown that consciousness, intellect, and Chidabhasa. Do we separate intellect in from
Intellect is the reflecting medium.
Which slide is that?
previous one you showed just.
Sumati,
Yeah, got the point,
can
ma'am.
the reflection be formed without a medium?
Okay, it's RM only. Okay.
Yeah.
So what we should know is Maya provides two kinds of reflecting media. One is the individual Vyashti and the other is the total. Whenever the reflection of the original happens through the limited ones, the Jiva is born. So, and then when it is coming through Maya, it is Ishvara. That is one thought that we have to get. Finally, we have to understand who is this Aham that was discussed in the last class. Is there any doubt? See, all of us, when we are ignorant, we think I am this body-mind complex. We do not know anything about that Kutastha or the original consciousness. But a Jnani knows that he is actually the original consciousness. And for Vyavahara purposes, he says, I am going, I am coming. But he knows in reality, as Atma, you cannot go anywhere. You cannot come anywhere. So there is an important word called Tiraskar. So where is that word coming? That word, when a Jnani says Tiraskar, that means he disidentifies with the body-mind complex. So what we need to see our body-mind as only an instrument to be able to be used, to be able to discover our true self. Then a question comes, which will be elaborated in this today's class also, is when I say, is samsara satya or mithya? We know actually samsara is satya or mithya?
Mithya.
Yeah. Samsara is mithya. And now all of us mithya beings, through a mithya guru, through a mithya shastra, are trying to get satyam. All right. Now that knowledge that we get, which will help us to get enlightenment, is that satya or mithya, Vasumati?
Mithya.
See, we are going to a guru, we are doing all this. So ultimately, when we are mithya, our guru is mithya, our shastra is mithya, ultimately we are only going to get a mithya knowledge. But then the Purva Pakshi is a person, Purva means who takes the opposite party position. He says, oh, you friends, why are you wasting your time doing something useless? Because ultimately you're going to get mithya. So Vidyaranya says, don't worry, even though you get only a mithya knowledge, this is enough to give us liberation, because all our suffering is based on ignorance. When you see the rope snake, for example, now I'm frightened by the rope snake. Now to remove that rope snake, do I need a real stick or do I need only knowledge? The moment light is thrown, the light of knowledge is thrown, I don't need any real stick. All I need is knowledge. Once this knowledge comes that it is not a snake, but it is a rope, then immediately I don't need any stick. So therefore, even though this knowledge is mithya, what is this knowledge? Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, all these great statements are only thoughts. But this thought is enough to take our ignorance away. And all this will be clarified a little more. Let me try to do my bit now, and then we will open up for discussion. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om. I'm speaking to very ardent seekers, and all of you, it is my request that you listen to both Swami Paramarthananda and Swami Tadatmananda ji. Then these classes will become wonderful. Now, I've already spoken to you about the importance of satsanga. Satsangatve nisangatvam. Nisangatve nirmohatvam. All the moha is gone. Nirmohatve nischala tattvam. My mind gradually becomes very clear. And when the mind becomes very clear, my mind virtually disappears. When the mind disappears, see, mana eva manushyanam karana bandha mokshaye. Now I had to use my mind to make my mind so pure like a mirror that it reflects only 100%. It does not reflect my limited nature. So that is the story of Jivan Mukti. We always begin by Namaskara, Namah Shri Shankarananda, Guru Pada Ambu Janmani, Sa Vilasa, yeah, Sa Vilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasika Eka Karmani. Now, you should remember, a guru is not here to give us information. So let all these classes, that is why we are focusing on Satsanga. Satsanga is not an information class. It was Anyonyan Prabodhana. All of us, if you have done your discussion, you can also take part in the Satsanga and clarify with each verse. Yeah, no, this is not what you said, but this is my understanding. So Anyonyan Tat Prabodhana. So we can teach each other. So that is exactly what we are doing in these classes. Our whole aim is to remove that ignorance of that suffering, that I'm seeing a snake when the snake is not there. That means the ignorance of the fact that I am a limited being when I'm actually Sat Chit Ananta. I am limitless. My true nature is, when all of us are asleep, we have absolutely no problems. When does problem comes? When we wake up. When we wake up, what happens? Our mind comes. When the mind comes, I feel I'm this limited body. I am other than you. This world is creating a lot of issues for me. I against the world, and then I pray to Ishvara, go to the temple, do my puja. What is my business? Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, or the triangular format. What this teaching will tell you, don't worry about all that. You are already that. You are getting into the role of a male or a female body, young or old, patient or doctor, doesn't matter. This is only a role play. This world is a wonderful drama. Do your drama. That is all. And how do we do it? We go to the teacher, and the teacher goes to the Upanishads, and the Upanishad says, Atmanam Ched Vijaniyat Ayam Asmiti Purusha. Purusha means all of us should know Atmanam Ched. Ched means if. What happens if I get to know my true nature as Atma? And how should I know it? Vijaniya ayam asmiti. I should know. See, for the time being, I know I am this body. About this body, I'm 100% clear. If somebody asks me what's my biodata, I will tell you how old I am, where I was born, what is my education, what is my work, what type of family I have. All that is my biodata in relation to my body. But then, Vijaniyat. I know I am Atma. I am of the nature of Sat Chit Ananta. If I know that, then what happens? Kim Icchan. There is nothing to desire in this world. Kasya Kamaya. Where is that desire? What is the struggle that you have to do? There is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. Nandati Nandati. That is what this whole message of this verse is. That is what we should know. So our whole aim is to know my true nature. See, for the time being, I'm this mixture of body-mind. My body-mind is only a means for me to communicate. But in reality, I and all of you are Atma, Atmanam Ched. Ramana gives us a small formula, Naham Deham. The first step is, I am not my body. If I'm not my body, Koham. What are we doing is, this is called Vicharana. We are inquiring. And then you discover, Saha Aham Asmi. I am that. In this text, that refers to Kutastha, that which is always there, Kutastha, that which is never undergoing any change. Normally, because of avidya or maya, there is a knot in my heart called Hridaya Granthi. And because of the Hridaya Granthi, which is called avidya kama karma, because of avidya, I do not know my true nature. I get a desire. If I become rich, if I become famous, if I become accomplished, if I study this Gita, what will happen? So a desire comes. Once a desire comes, can you keep quiet? It will force you to move out and do this or that. And whenever you do karma, each karma develops punya or papa, and then you have to come back to live to this punya and papa. So this avidya, kama, karma, punarjanma cycle is going on and on. Thankfully, a guru has come into our lives. We have just finished Guru Purnima, and the guru has told us, you know, remember the 10th man story? The guru has told us Brahman Asti. From Brahman Asti, we have to come to Brahma Asmi. Bhagavad Gita. Ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. Because most of our suffering is based on ignorance. I do not know my true avaranam, avriti. My knowledge, my atma has been covered by ignorance, and therefore we are all suffering. I told you this in the beginning. We have to train our minds to claim I am Atma. This body mind is only an instrument. Remember, this whole world is a stage. We have to be good actors and actresses on the stage all the time, like Sri Dakshinamurti, keeping apasmara under check that I am Atma. So our aim of studying Tripti Deepa is to convert from Jnanam to Jnana Nishta, from Brahma Asti to Brahma Asmi. This is the great jump that we have to go on. 3 terms will be coming again and again in this class. What is Paroksha? Aksha means eyes or sense organs. That which is beyond my eyes and sense organs is Paroksha. That which is within my sense organs is Pratyaksha. But that which is known as myself, where I get to know myself without the use of my mind and sense organs, which is Ayam Asti, which is closer than the close. That is what is called aparoksha. In generally, we don't use the word pratyaksha. We are only using paroksha and pratyaksha. Now, when the teacher wants to teach you, the teacher has to use certain words. The teacher has to communicate through Shabda Pramanam. And through Shabda Pramanam, there are 2 types of Vakyas. One is called the Avantara Vakya. When they want to say Brahman Asti, Brahman exists, the teacher will say Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. So these are all the nature of Brahman. This knowledge is indirect. We are talking about some Brahman who is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. But after Vichara, after the teacher makes you count those 9 people and then he says you are the 10th man, then I get to know that which I'm looking for is none other than myself. From Brahma Asti to Brahma Asmi. That Vakya, that statement, even though it is Mithya, is enough to remove all my suffering. And that is what we understand by the Mahavakya. Now, we are continuing these classes. And these classes, each time you will realize a certain level of difficulty. Now, I know we must see ourselves as advanced students of Vedanta. Shiv Kumar, your turn to explain these 2 verses, please.
Are you recording, Dr. Hegde?
Yes, madam.
It is being recorded. Any questions? Why?
I didn't see the recording, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is only for the purposes of those people who are not able to touch India time. See, for you also, it is an inconvenient time. But some people in the UK and others, for them, it is neither early morning, it will be somewhere on. Now, they also want to take part. Maybe few people only, but they have made this request. So we will do a final recording on every Saturday of that week. But Shiv, please.
Hari Om, Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. The verse 21, Shloka 21, goes like this. Ayam itya parokshatvam uchyate chetadutyatam sarvam prakasha chaitanyam aparoksham sadayataha. The first line of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, mantra 4412 says, Ayam asmi iti. This Kutastha Chaitanya I am. Purvapakshi objected to this, the use of the word I am, this, which is used for things which are directly experienced and are in front of me, like these glasses or a pen, etc. Then, how can one use such an expression for Kutastha Chaitanya, which is not an object directly in front and experienced by me? Vidyaranya, answering this question in this shloka, he says, Atma or Kutastha Chaitanya is not an object in front or directly experienced as an object, but it is Sada Aparoksha Yataha, directly and continuously experienced as the very subject I. And therefore, there is nothing wrong in using the expression I am for I am for Kutastha Chaitanya, which is self-effulgent and self-experienced. Three important terms which Dr. has already explained. I would like to again come back to that in brief. Pratyaksha, it is that which are directly experienced by our senses, sense organs. It is the first-hand knowledge, like the slides which are being displayed, sound of my voice, etc. Paroksha Gnanam, this is comprehensible knowledge, like knowledge of a far-off place or things, which we have not experienced personally, but perceived by others. I remind you the example of far-off Badri, which Doctor has given us earlier. Or the information we gain from books or the internet, etc. But the same time, if I visit Badrinath and experience with my own senses, the Paroksha Gnanam becomes Pratyaksha Gnanam. Aparoksha Gnanam, third one. That which is neither directly or indirectly perceived by anyone at any time, being beyond mind and senses. It is incomprehensible. It is closer than closest. It is the very knower subject I. I am known neither directly nor indirectly, but immediately. I am neither far nor near to me. This I can never become that. Hearing that Kutastha Chaitanya is always directly experienced as the subject, the Purva Paksha comes with a series of questions based on the second line of this shloka, which Vidyaranya answers in the following 22nd shloka onwards. The 22nd shloka goes like this. Paroksham aparoksham cha gnanam agnanam ityadaha nitya paroksha rupe api dvayam syadhyam syadhasame yatha. The shloka itself contains answers to the questions of Purva Paksha. Swami Paramarthanandaji formulates questions based on these answers in this shloka, as in the slide. They are, how can you talk about the agnana or ignorance of Kutastha when it is directly ever experienced and known to you? If ignorance of Kutastha is never possible, you cannot talk of the knowledge of Kutastha. Third, Kutastha is neither a remote nor a close by object. We cannot talk about Paroksha Gnana of Kutastha. Fourth, since there is no possibility of Paroksha Gnana, you cannot talk of Aparoksha Gnana also. Being aware and directly experiencing Kutastha Chaitanya as the very object, we saw that Kutastha Chaitanya is ever experienced as subject I. Vidyaranya says that pairs like Agnana, Gnana, Paroksha Gnana, Aparoksha Gnana, both are very much possible with regard to Kutastha Chaitanya. Even though the Kutastha Chaitanya is ever experienced directly as the subject. But simply asserting not being enough, and there is a need to prove a claim, Vidyaranya illustrates the proof through the well-known and often quoted in Vedanta, the story of the 10th man. The story goes like, as we know, 10 disciples decide to go to a village fair with the permission of their guru. One is the leader who took the responsibility of the group's safety. As they approached the river, boat nor boatmen were there. But eager to attend the fair, they nonetheless decide to cross the river. After crossing, the 10th person, a boy or leader, wanting to make sure that all of them are safe, he made everyone stand in a line and counted only 1 to 9. Fearing the 10th man to be lost, they started searching for the 10th one without realizing the leader himself is the 10th. They got worried and started weeping. Just then, a learned person comes there and inquires the problem. The leader narrates the story of losing the 10th man in the river. The Guru, understanding the situation, assures and gives them the indirect knowledge that the 10th man is somewhere around them and makes them stand in front of him. Then the Guru asks the leader to count. After that, the Guru says, Dashamaha Tvamasi, Tat Tvamasi. The 10th boy you are looking for is you yourself. And when this was revealed, the 10th man gained aparoksha gnana of himself, that he is Dashamaha Aham Asmi. The leader's first knowledge is paroksha gnana of Dashama Asti, the 10th man is there. And then he has aparoksha gnana, Dashamaha Aham Asmi, that I am the 10th man. Hence, all these being possible in the case of Dashama, the same is possible in the case of Kutastha Atma also. Another story to illustrate this point is that of Karna from Mahabharata, which all of us will know. Even though he was Kaunteya always, all the time, Kunti Putra, he was ignorant of this fact that he was Kunti Putra till Kunti tells him Tattvamasi. In the shlokas to follow, Swami Vidyaranya is going to elaborate this, and he also brings out the 7 avasthas, 7 stages that an individual goes through, as can be seen from the story of the 10th man. An understanding of this will help us evaluate where we stand. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Shivkumar. Very nicely explained. See, only when you go to study and explain, you understand the difficulty and you have your own understanding. That is why all of us have to be teachers. Now, there will still be questions. We have 1 or 2 minutes for any clarification. We are open to discussion on this topic.
Sir, Dashamaha Asti, can we take it as that Paroksha Gnana as Gnana, sir, and Aparoksha Gnana Nishta, sir?
See, Dashama Asti can be taken as Paroksha Jnana. See, the teacher will come and say the 10th man exists, but where is he, who, I do not know. It is Paroksha Jnana. I know that Brahman exists. I know Brahman is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. See, all of us are what is called in the stage 4. We know about Brahman. But that I am Brahman, that is what we are working for in all these classes. So, when they say Brahman, the 10th man exists, it is still Paroksha Jnana. Vasumati?
Yes, sir. Thank you. But it is still not Nishta. Nishta comes with Aparoksha.
Yeah, and then the teacher has to do a technique. If the teacher, like Kunti tells him, you are my son, he's not convinced. Then she has to give a technique. She has to give the whole story, what happened. That she had that special power, she invoked those powers. Like that, the Guru here makes that 10th man count everybody. 9 people are there. Then who's the 10th man? It is you. Now, when the teacher does this technique is called Prakriya. What all we are doing in our satsanga, various kinds of Prakriya. Now, there are so many people, 55 of us. Now, as you are listening to this, suddenly something will open up in one of us. See, when that opens up, then you know, from nowhere you understand, I have got it. So our whole objective is somehow you have to get it. So our satsanga is for that purpose. From Brahma Asti to Brahma Asmi. And even when I know, like for instance, Kunti tells Karna and he knows, but he has not yet been transformed. It will take some time. That is why we are giving ourselves 4 months time. 4 months time, be in satsanga. You know, I know the session is going a little longer than planned, But any more doubts other
No,
than
sir. Thank you, sir.
we still can have one more question. Otherwise, we'll proceed to the next speaker. So this Dashamaha story is very important. And I want you to teach this story and to explain how the various stages will come. And it will come so many times. So I'm not going into again. Vasanta, for the next 2 verses, please.
Hari Om, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the Tripti Deepa verses, Vidyaranya uses the 10th man story to brilliantly make us understand each of the 7 steps towards spiritual evolution. In verses 26 and 27, Vidyaranya explains the Paroksha Jnanam and Aparoksha Jnanam stages and the resulting Shoka Nivritti and Tripti stages too. So let's look at verse 26. Na mruto dashamo stiti shrutwaptavachanam tada parokshatvena dashamam veti swargadi lokavat. Hearing from a trustworthy person that the 10th person exists and is not dead, the student knows indirectly that the 10th person is still there, much like he knows indirectly that heaven and other lokas exist. The student has counted all the students in the group several times and found only 9. His ignorance has kept him from seeing the 10th man, almost like covering up the 10th man. He has now started projecting that the 10th man is dead and is full of grief. As he prays in desperation, his prayers are answered in the form of an approaching holy man. Hearing his story, the holy man reassures the student that the 10th man exists and is not dead. This reassurance from a trustworthy person is indirect knowledge or paroksha jnanam to the student. He knows that the 10th man is still alive, but at this point, he is still unable to see the 10th man and presumes he is far away. This paroksha jnanam is similar to a devotee knowing that heaven exists, but not seeing heaven himself. Here, the holy man tells the student that the 10th man is very much alive. Similarly, when a guru tells the student that there is Brahman, the student presumes that Brahman is outside of himself and he has to search for Brahman. So to reiterate, this 4th stage of Paroksha Jnanam is knowledge gained from a trustworthy source and not something that is based on self-experience. And it is knowledge that is looked at as being outside of oneself. So now let's go on to verse 27. Tvameva dashamos iti ganayitva pradarshitaha aparokshataya jnatva krishatyeva naroditi. After being shown through counting that you are the 10th man, the student directly understands that he is the 10th man. Having understood this, the student stops crying and rejoices. Now, the student gains relative peace of mind when he obtains paroksha jnanam that the 10th man is alive. The holy man then asks all the 9 other students to join the student, and he counts them. When he gets to the student, after counting all the other 9, he says, Tvam eva dashamaha asi. You are the 10th one. That's when the student realizes that he is himself the 10th man, and he does not have to go searching for the 10th man. This is aparoksha jnanam, or direct knowledge, because the student observes the holy man counting the students and conclusively showing him that he is the 10th person. The student has been the 10th man all along, but it takes the holy man's counting for the student's veil of ignorance to be removed and for him to understand that he himself is the 10th man. So the holy man's counting is what is called the prakriya here. the student has to first drop the notion of the loss of the 10th man, and only then is he able to discover that he himself is the 10th man. As a corollary to it is the dropping of the notion that Brahman is something outside to be found, and the acceptance that I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, that is Aparoksha Jnanam. Once the student obtains this Aparoksha Jnanam, he is relieved of his grief. This is the Shoka Nivritti stage. As the student rejoices with relief, he becomes content and reaches the Tripti stage. The eagerness to find Brahman is replaced by the peace and ananda of being Brahman. This is called Jijnasa Nivritti. These are the 7 stages in the search of Ananda, which culminate in the realization that I am Ananda. Now in verses 3 to 28, Vidyaranya gives a brief commentary on verse 4.4.12 of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. He explains that Atma or Kutastha Chaitanya is the Nitya Aparoksha Vastu, meaning that Atma is ever directly experienced by everyone. This leads to 2 doubts that he clarifies using the Dashamaha Tvam Asi story. Doubt 1. How can one talk about Jnana and Ajnana of ever experienced Atma? Therefore, ever known Atma. So here, the 10th man was always the 10th man, but his ignorance made him unaware. Similarly, even though Atma is ever experienced, ignorance can cover this Jnana and lead to Ajnana. Now, doubt 2 is, if Atma is directly known, how can you talk about indirect knowledge of Atma? So again, the 10th man was always the 10th man, but his ignorance made him unaware of his own state. It took the indirect knowledge, Dashamaha Asti, to first calm his mind down and make him receptive to direct knowledge. Only then could the holy man help the 10th man experience the fact that he was the 10th man and tell him, Dashamaha Tvameva Asi. So indirect knowledge of Atma can be a stepping stone to direct knowledge of the ever-present Atma. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Vasanta. Vidyaranya is brilliant, with a brilliant example of Dashama, and you have done a brilliant explanation, making it as simple. This is exactly what I want all our teachers to do. Again, Vasumati, you can be the vocalist for everybody or anybody. If they want any clarity, although Vasanta has very nicely explained, but still doubts will be there.
Sir, when the Guru came and said Dashamaha Asti, it was Paroksha Gnana for the 10th man.
Yeah.
Then it became Pratyaksha when he saw it. When he
Yeah.
saw he was present and he was the 10th one. So Pratyaksha Gnana itself becomes Aparoksha Gnana then, no? Direct.
Very true. See, normally when you say Pratyaksha, it is something in front of me using my sense organs, I recognize. Now, throughout in this Tripti, that Pratyaksha, Paroksha, Aparoksha is overlapped. So whenever you use the word whenever you use the Aparoksha, don't think of it as something as an object in front of you, but think it is as myself, something very close to me. That is the meaning of I am Asti. I am this. So normally we use those 3 words, Paroksha, which is beyond my sense organs, Pratyaksha, that is front of me. For example, this computer is in front of me, this camera is in front of me. I will not say this is me. But here we are talking from Brahma Asti to Brahma Asmi. So we will keep only 2 forms. Paroksha, that is Brahma Asti, to Aparoksha Brahma Asmi. Any other clarifications? This is all, friends. This discussion will go on for 4 months. This Dashama story will go on coming. But I want you to do your own homework, listen to the teachers, read the text, make your own understanding. And then when these speakers talk, then you will realize, you know, what a beautiful explanation they have made. We will go to the next. Yes, yes, please, go ahead.
Can we conclude that aparoksha jnana, which is not available for Indriya, for our senses?
Correct. Yeah. See, aparoksha jnanam is not available to our indriya or sense organs. For example, if I will ask you, you know, supposing we were in a classroom and all sitting together, if I ask you, is Vasumati there? You will have to look around and say, oh, she's there or she's not there. To say Vasumati is there, I have to use my sense organs and mind. But if I ask you, Kulkarni, are you there? Do you have to look around? Do you have to see? Do you have to touch? To know I am, what sense organs are you using? That knowledge which is beyond sense organs is the real knowledge. I'll repeat again. That knowledge which you don't need. So Atma Jnanam is that knowledge. That knowledge is what I am. When you say I, only a conscious person can say I. When you say am, I mean I'm existent. Now, slowly you will understand this I am, Satyam Jnanam is Anantam. Because this I am has been there, Balyadishu, Jagritadishu, in all states, at all times. Now look at your own photograph. How much your body has changed. How much your mind has changed. So there is something that is changing. So I'm not this body. When you say I am someone who's always there. That which never undergoes changes with time is Ananta. So that is what we are working on. Our whole effort is Asti to
Asmi.
All right.
Asmi.
I'll proceed. Dr. Asha Naik, please.
Thanks, sir.
Om Gurubhyo Namah. So this will be repetition till from Brahma Asmi to Brahma Asti. So like when we learn swimming, how much ever it is told by each person that you can float and you will not get drowned. Unless you yourself float without help, till then people keep telling you. Same as when you are balancing on a cycle. So what I'm going to say, it is again repetition. And it will be throughout 4 months till we realize ourselves. So Shloka 28 tells us about through the story all 7 stages, and that is a human personality and develops a spiritual quest. So Shloka 28 goes like this. Adnyana vritti vikshepya dvividha jnana truptaya Shokapagama ityate yojaniya chidatmashi. So the meaning is, word meaning is Adnyana means ignorance. Vritti means veiling. Vikshepa means projection. Dvidha jnana, 2 kinds of knowledge. Truptaya is satisfaction. Shokapagama, cessation of grief. Ityate, thus these yojaniya should be applied chidatmani in the case of self-knowledge. Next slide, sir. So Shloka 8 says 7 stages can be attributed in the case of above example of the 10th man. That is ignorance, veiling, projection, 2 kinds of knowledge, cessation of grief, and satisfaction. The same should be applied in the case of self-knowledge. Next slide, sir. So the story of 10th man already Shivkumarji explained. So next, so they're coming back from swimming and coming back. Next slide, sir. So one of them says, I don't know the 10th man, says the 10th man.
And this is the ignorance. That is how it is explained. This is the ignorance. And he's telling he doesn't know where is the same way everybody counts all the 9 and does not count and says, where is the 10th man? So they all get stuck with 9. That is Naiva Sankhya Jnaya. They could not see beyond that. So how it is explained, that is preoccupied and prejudiced or opinionated mind with the fixed ideas can never see the truth, which happens many times in argument when you are trying to tell them something. So here they are telling us that we ourselves are Brahman. So, but we don't believe because we don't see the 10th man. Interestingly, all 10 have got diluted, just as almost all in the world do. We ever often do not see which is right in front of us. The real example, which everybody would have known, that specks around your neck, and then you will be searching everywhere. That has happened to everyone. So we often forget, take account of most important factor, and we take the most obvious for granted, and that causes the problem. Ignorance is what we are, and what we are is most common. It is easy to see the others, but not ourselves. That's how they miss the 10th man. Next slide, sir. So this is state of ignorance. Second stage is state of veiling avarana. I do not see 10th man. When I don't see means he is not there. If he was here, I would have seen him. Ignorance itself creates this veiling. Because we are ignorant, we can't see the 10th man. Interestingly, none of them could recall the face the missing of the 10th man, because it is themselves. Sri Gurudev calls this is non-apprehension of the truth. Next slide, sir. State of superimposition. This is like a snake and this story. Non-apprehension creates many misapprehension or superimposition, like a snake and rope. The 10th man must have drowned in the river. Our friend is dead. What we will tell our Guru? If we have to tell his parents, what will you tell? Interestingly, none of them who don't know who is the 10th man, and they grieve over the loss of 10th man. This is called Vikshepa. Next slide, sir. The state of indirect knowledge. The wise man goes around and smiles and tells with compassion and assures them that 10th man was not dead, and they believe in his with faith and conclude that if he says so, the 10th man must be alive. But still it is not direct. They feel that man must have got carried away in river, and this wise man would have seen. So this is an indirect knowledge again. They believe that this is a 10th man, but it is indirect. This knowledge gave them some relief and created desire in them to see him. Where is the 10th man? If he has walked away, I want to see him. So the next state of a direct knowledge. Now the Swamiji, Guruji comes, and the wise man made them count each one of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And when they reach 10th, they say, look, count yourself. See him, see yourself, 10th man. And he tells everybody, they saw him directly as themselves. This is Aparoksha Jnana. They realize I was always there, even when I was not knowing, not seeing, weeping, indirectly knowing. So direct knowledge leaves no scope of doubts, like maybe he is dead, lost or missing. The knowledge, I am what I am looking for, firm and abiding. Next slide, sir. This is now 6th state without sorrow, Shokapagama. This is with direct knowledge. All worries have gone, sorrows have gone, fear has gone, lamenting ceasing, and they must have felt quite foolish for all commotion they have caused and all pointless tears they shed. So this is, he has realized he himself. Next slide, sir. State of total satisfaction and trupti. Once they realize I am 10th man, there was a shout of jubilation and immediate relief. Trupti means contentment, fulfillment, and happiness. When we realize ourselves, we are never worried, though we play in a vyavahara like other person, but we are always internally happy. And that is called state of total life. Tripti, 7th stage. Next slide, sir. So conclusion is, thus is described seeker's journey from the state of ignorance to the state of knowledge and bliss through the story of 10th man to understand. The individual can experience ignorance and knowledge of the self, and also indirect and direct knowledge. The 10th man always experiences himself, but that experience is not enough. Knowledge of the self is needed for freedom from sorrow and attainment of the bliss. Next slide, sir. This next slide, again, he is going to tell the same thing in different way. That is Shloka 19. Sansara asakta chitta sanchita bhasha kadachan swayam prakasha kutastham swatatham nayet vekyam. Here the meaning of this thing is samsara sakta chitta sans, is mind being totally engrossed in worldly affairs. Chidabhasa, that is the individual jiva. Kadachan, never. Sway prakasha kutastha, the self-evident, pure conscious, that is yourself. Swatattvam, his own real nature. Na aiva, not. Veti ayam, know this. So the meaning is the individual with mind engrossed in the worldly affairs not know his real nature of being self-evident and pure conscious. In other words, next slide, sir. The state of ignorance, it is told that journey of samsara, he is completely engrossed in the world. He doesn't know his infinite himself and remains total ignorance. He's engaged 24/7, acquiring, enjoying, thinking, reveling in worldly affairs. Raga, Moha, Doha, Dusha, all those things. He discusses for hours about the special feature, going for Apple new phone and showing how this thing is. So much involved, doesn't know that he himself. Same way, car also, he wants different cars to show others, getting totally involved and happy about it because he is not ignorant. The happiness is within himself. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, madam. I think something of Vidyaranya has rubbed off on you. Really, a very nice and a brilliant presentation, because these are not easy to understand and you have made it so simple and so easy to understand. And yet there will be doubts, and I will open this for a few minutes for any clarification in spite of the...
Sir, I have a Purva Pakshi doubt, sir.
Please go ahead.
Sir, did any example we use in Vedanta has its own limitations, right, sir? Like in this 10th man story also, the 10th man, we are saying the 10th man is not there. But in our case, we are not even having the distinction of this body and the Atma. We are saying I am the body. I'm not saying I'm not there. I'm saying I'm not the body. So there is a gap in this example, but we'll have to take it with that.
Thank you very much. See, we have to realize that the 10th man story is only for one particular purpose. And as you rightly said, this is not an example for all solution of all our Atma Vidya problems, but certainly it can help us to go from Paroksha to Aparoksha. In that way, so there is a limited value, and that limited value Vidyaranya fully exploits. And you will have Purva Pakshi bringing opposite points of view. And ultimately, every time he will say, go to the Dashama. Your questions are answered by Dashama. As you rightly said, you know what Dr. Asha Naik says, when you do not know, remember this Namashri Shankarananda Guru Pada Ambuja Janmane, Savilasa. The word is Savilasa. Now, when I do not know my true nature, then I think I'm a limited person. When I'm limited, then if I get a good car, if I get an latest Apple phone, Dr. Asha Naik showed all those pictures. You know, all of us are caught up in the world of proving something to somebody else because I do not know my true nature. I want to be infinite. So therefore, your question is this, I am so identified with my body-mind. And that is Savilasa. That means ignorance of my true nature, then projections of Vikshepa. Vikshepa projects in the form of identification with the body, and the body and the mind has all kinds of limitations, has all kinds of problems. Now, as you become a student of Vedanta, you will sometimes wonder, with this body and this mind, where will I become a jnani? How will the teacher slowly will say, don't worry at all. Don't worry about your body or the state of your body or state of your mind, but focus on who you are, which is something other than the body, other than the mind. That means even though my body has got, and my mind, especially the mind, body is okay. The body may have some diseases, that is not a problem. But my mind has got a lot of vasanas, my mind has got a lot of tendencies. I become the greatest critic of myself. How can you think of yourself as Brahma Jnani? So we become critical and we say, no, Vasumati, all this is part of Savilasa or body identification. When you identify with the body and your mind has got any negative thoughts, you will say, how can a Brahma Jnani entertain any negative thoughts? See, the mind has its own vasanas. The mind has its own tendencies. But who are you? I am not this mind. I will still use the same mind like a pole vault to go beyond.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions on the verses that Dr. Asha Naik explained?
Dr. Hegde, I just have something to share rather than a question.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
And that is about this dual state that we are in, right? Where on one side, we're so much this body-mind complex, and on another side, we sort of are beginning to start to understand that I am the Atman. And I think being totally at peace with this duality is a very critical part for us in our path forward, I feel. Because lots of times we waste so much time on feeling wrong about it.
Very nicely said, Vasanta. See, you will realize these things. We have a basic split, the split being body-mind identification, and therefore, sometimes you will say, what a disparity between who I am and who I am supposed to be. But remember, who you are, reality is, nothing is not going to be affected by your body or your mental status. For example, in deep sleep, how are you? So peaceful, so purna, so complete. An awakened person, that means when I am in a nishta of I am Atma Brahma, then even though my mind has got certain turbulations, I will see that as mithya and not give importance to it. Swami Anubhavananda, he has made one statement, and I want you to register this. Whatever I give a lot of importance to, do I give importance to my body, do I important to my mind, my profession, my family, my possessions, whatever. Whatever I give a lot of importance to, that something is the cause of all my problems. For a Vedantic student, if you give a lot of problems to your own mind and body limitations, that becomes. So what do? See them as mithya. Don't give too much importance. And see yourself as I am Atma Brahma.
So for me, the problem is not about the conflict of these two, Vyavahara and Paramarthika, but the slipping down like unknowingly into this Vyavahara, taking it seriously at times. No, with awareness also we slip. That becomes a challenge, sir.
That is everybody's problem, Vasumati. See, this journey between Brahma Asti, we all now become teachers of the thing, to Brahma Asmi, takes few months, 2 years, to few days, or few decades. But let us be patient.
So no, few decades, sir, you've always said 10 years.
I'll promise you 10 years. Are you how many years over now?
I think halfway mark.
Halfway. No, sometimes it may be 10 minutes also. Before the end of this class, we never know what will happen. Okay. See,
it's a lifelong orientation.
Please go ahead, sir.
Sir, it's a lifelong orientation that identifying ourselves with this not having the 10th man. The disidentification is so ingrained in us that the 10th man, we don't, I don't see it in the transactional day-to-day life. I know earlier question was similar, but it's kind of so difficult to reorient ourselves with the 10th. That's why, as you stated in the previous class, that asti to asmi is such a big orientation. Yes, the 4 months classes, I definitely value it. Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. I fully appreciate. As you said, in Vyavahara, once you get into Vyavahara, you get so sucked into it. The problem is we have been into this for such a long time. It takes some time for us to be able to, and so let us be patient. And that is where satsanga, see, when each of us express our own limitations in a satsanga like this, everybody is able to identify. When somebody says, I am Atma Brahma and acts like I am Atma Brahma, you're faking it. So therefore, let us be honest in this satsang that, I am struggling. I'm struggling, and what you're saying looks so distant. But then I also know there is a certain truth in it. That's why I'm still part of this satsang. So, we are working on this only. Let us continue our Chetana is not there. There are 2 verses from 30 and 30.
Asha ma'am has raised her hand, sir. Asha ma'am wants to say something.
Madam, please go ahead.
No meaning, just experience. I'm telling my own experience. So whatever you have taught, yama, niyama, discipline yourself, and be good human being, Ishwara Arpana and Ishwara Prasada, all those things you keep doing as many times you can. And dhyana. So every day you have to follow this dhyana puja. So when you do dhyana, sometime you just, like my experience is, you dissolve, you expand. That when it happens, you don't know. It happens. And when you expand yourself, and then you lose the time sense also at that time. And after that stage, I don't know which one. Maybe afterwards I'll experience, I'll let you all know.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. And what she has said, see, we have our lows and we have also glimpse of I am Atma Brahma. Sometimes for no reason, you feel so happy. You feel so fulfilled. Sometimes it may happen during prayer. It may be during, a meditation. So all these experiences will happen. But these are all right. We come to the next verse. Now, these are the 7 phases. Now, all of us should be very clear. What are the 7 phases of spiritual evolution? First is called Ajnana. And this becomes very relevant in the 10th man story, where, and this is story in all of our lives, 99% of the world population have no idea about Brahman, and they're not bothered about that is also. This is called unexpressed ignorance. They don't know, and they don't know that they don't know also. So that is the first stage. The second stage is avarana. That means they know that they do not know. The word avarana means covering. Now, suddenly those boys have come. They were all happy that they survived that ocean and the river crossing they have come across. They don't even know if all have come or not. Ignorance is bliss. That is stage 1. Stage 2, they start looking around and they find the 10th man is missing. All right, that is stage 2. Stage 3 is what has happened to the 10th man. Has he drowned? How do I handle the family? Now, we are all in the first 3 phases of ignorance. Not all of us, because we are into the spiritual path, but certainly because of Vikshepa, we are suffering. We think I am, see, these verses will talk about. Vikshepa means what? I have so much to do. after this class, I have to this to do. Whenever you feel I'm a karta, bhokta, then I am suffering. These are all the Vikshepa related. The Paroksha Jnanam is because we are Brahman students, we are students of Brahma Vidya. The teacher has told us in so many ways in Bhagavad Gita that Brahman Asti. So we have indirect knowledge. Then comes the direct knowledge when the teacher says, Brahma Asmi, you are that, Tatutvam Asi. And when that becomes a realization, all my sorrow disappears. And then you have Tripti. Now, if you listen to Swami Anubhavananda's talk, in the beginning, there is a Maha Mantra. Life is a time pass. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Dekho suno mat bolo. Those are Maha Mantras. So when you have reached the Tripti stage, you will be singing that time pass song. There is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. Now, for all our teachers, what I would like to say, if we will, as far as possible, for your own study, go into these Sanskrit details. Na bhati, na asti kutastha. Initially, I'm not aware of the existence or the expression of this kutastha. So this is the initial stages. And therefore, because I did not know who I am a karta, bhokta, and I have all forms of wrong beliefs. This is what verse 30 says. Because of avarana, because of ajnana, I do not know my true nature. I think I'm this limited person. I have a lot of suffering because I have make a projection on the rope that I have seen a snake. So avarana is of two types. Avarana of the existence of Brahman, avarana of the manifestation of Brahman. Then this is that same verse 30. Of course, we have to go back to our fundamentals of Vedanta. Our fundamentals of Vedanta is I am other than what I'm experiencing. Can you experience that silence? The one who is the experiencer, I am. And my true nature is I do not have any attributes. Now, initially, the teacher gives indirect knowledge through what is called Avantara Vakya. That is called Paroksha Jnanam. Satyam Jnanam, Anantam are all Paroksha Jnanam. And then gradually when the teacher goes through this fundamentals of Vedanta and through all these classes, at some stage you realize what the teacher is talking about is not about some Brahman, it is about my true nature. And when I get that, that is called Mahavakya or enlightenment. This is a spiritual enlightenment. When one gains indirect knowledge, see through Asti Kutastha Adyo. So when they say Kutastha exists, Brahman exists, what kind of knowledge it is? It is Paroksha knowledge. When they say Kutastham Asmi, that it is called Aparoksha Jnanam. You will see a lot of repetition. So the first line says Paroksha Jnanam, that is indirect. The second line talks about Aparoksha Jnanam, that is direct. So Paroksha Jnanam is given through Avantara Vakya or the in-between statements like Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. It is about some Brahman who's a third place. But when the teacher says that Brahman that you are looking for, that you are doing is none other than your true nature, that consciousness within you, that which has been there from the very beginning, your body has changed, your mind has changed, that which has never changed, that is called Aparoksha Jnanam. This is possible through Shastra Vichara, and this is possible only through Shravanam. Once Shravanam has come through Satsanga, we clarify all the doubts. And then in Nididhyasanam, so once I know, that means from stage 4, Paroksha Jnanam, that is the stage of Brahma Asti. When the teacher will tell you Brahma Asmi, I am, then what do? In Satsanga, you keep on repeating or meditating till at one time it becomes a Nishta. So these two verses will tell you what is the sadhanas that we need to do from Brahma Asti to Brahma Asmi. Now, before Rama comes to the last set of verses, any clarification on these two verses? These two verses are... Go ahead.
Sir, you made a mention like two types of ignorance, like ignorance of Brahman and ignorance of manifestation of Brahman. I didn't get the clarity of that. Sir.
Okay. It will come again in future. See, this avarana is of two types. It is called sattva avarana and bhana avarana. I would, if I bring it now, it will cause confusion. So sattva
Okay,
avarana.
sir, I will wait for it next.
Wait for it. But sattva avarana, when you say Brahman is there, then that avarana, that covering on the existence of Brahman is removed. That is stage 4. When Brahma I experience, I always find it useful to go into these moments of stillness. Can you feel it? These moments are experiences of Brahma Asmi. You suddenly begin to be aware of that gap, that aware of silence. It is not a knowledge experience. So even silence, that is why the whole of Dakshinamurti is an exposition on silence. In silence, you become aware of the one who is experiencing that silence. So that is the avarana that is removed on the experiencer. Ultimately, I know Brahman exists, but I also feel that Brahman in me as the experiencer. So that is called Sattva Avarana, and the second called is called Bhana Avarana. Friends, 52 of you are here. Don't be bothered that this is going to be repeated 100 times. But Vidyaranya is trying to ingrain into our subconscious. However thick the skull is, we are going to do a neurosurgical procedure to inject that truth into our head, and that is going to happen in the course of Tripti Deepa. This is my promise to those who attend the satsang, that it is possible. It is possible. Like initially I told you 10 years, but I'm now giving you 4 months time. In 4 months, this year's Vijaya Dashami should be a celebration. And then when we are going to study the next one, that is Kathopanishad, we are going to do it as a time pass, because at that time I have nothing to accomplish. I'm an accomplished person, but I'm Tripti. We come to the last presentation, and that will be
This manifestation, word you use is nothing to do with the manifestation word you use in creation, no, sir? This is only manifestation.
No. It is the expression. It's called Sattva Avarana and Bhana Avarana.
Okay, thank you.
Tvameva Bhanti, that's Bhana. Ramaji, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sapta Avastha of Chidabhasa Pradhana Jiva. Sri Vidyaranya Swami takes us through the 7 stages applied to Jiva's spiritual journey. In this chapter, he points them with respect to Dashamaha as seen in the slide, Jiva or Chidabhasa, bondage and liberation. So far, we have analyzed 5 stages out of 7 stages with respect to Chidabhasa. As described in the previous shlokas, the first stage is Agnanam. The Jiva with his mind engrossed in worldly affairs does not experience its real nature, that is the self-evident pure consciousness. Avaranam is concealing the truth and is the second stage. Vikshepa is the express stage of Avarana, projecting superimpositions. The non-apprehension of the self causes notions that I am a karta, the doer of action, and bhokta, the enjoyer of its results. Due to Punya Shesha and Guru Shastra Upadesha Shravanam, the Jiva aspires some relief and hope to realize the existence of Kutastha directly. On Vedantic inquiry, the Jiva experiences Kutastha Asmi, that is, I am Kutastha. And Jiva discriminates between the self and non-self. The self-knowledge, I am what I was looking for, is firm and abiding. The next stage is Shoka Apagama or Dukkha Nivrittihi. All sorrows, worries and lamenting caused by Vikshepa and Agnanam vanishes completely. Once the thorn of Ajnanam is removed, samsara, the pain due to it is also ceased. Nirankusha Truptihi or unrestricted bliss is the 7th stage. End of sorrow resulting in the experience of infinite bliss, which is our own true nature. And the Jiva Hrushyati, that is Jiva rejoices in total fulfillment. And the next slide shows the shloka 32. And an enlightened person will no more feels that he is the karta or bhokta. With this conviction, his grief comes to an end. Then he feels krutakrutyam, prapta prapaniyam, gnata gneyam, and these are the 3 qualities of an enlightened person. He feels that krutakrutyam, that is, I have done what needs to be done, prapaniyam praptam, achieved what has to be achieved, and gnata gneyam, I have enjoyed what is to be enjoyed. This is the kind of threefold satisfaction arises after he experiences Kutasthaha Asmi, that is the direct knowledge. And in the next slide, we see the shlokas 33 and 34, which describes the Saptavastha with respect to Chidabhasa. The Chidabhasa is the combination of the original consciousness, reflecting medium, and the reflecting consciousness. These 7 stages belong to Chidabhasa and not Brahman. Out of these 7, Ajnanam, Avruti, and Vikshepa are the 3 stages that cause bondage, and the remaining 4 are they cause the gradual liberation. These 7 stages are further reflected upon in the verses to follow. The verse 35, Vidyaranya state, indicates the reason for the Ajnanam, that is Vichara Prak Abhavaha. The prior absence of the self-inquiry is the main cause of ignorance and indifferent behavior to the truth. It is experienced as Najanami, I don't know, and it is called Ajnanam. And in the next slide, we see the shloka 36, which says, Amardujena vicharyata nasti no bhati chetyasau viparita vyavahriya avruteha karyam yushyate. The second stage is avarana, and it is the clear expression of one's ignorance regarding Kutastha. 2 types of avaranas are mentioned in scriptures, and they are asattva avaranam and abhana avaranam. Denying the existence of anything that is na asti, that is asattva avaranam, that is the thing is not known to me or experienced by me, that is na bhati, that is abhana avaranam. The next word is amargena vicharya. Amargena vicharya means it is erroneous thinking leading to wrong conclusions such as Kutastha does not exist, that is na asti, and it is not experienced by me, na bhati. This is the argument of the Ajnani Jivas as they ignore and misinterpret the scriptures. As a result, viparita vyavahrutihi. One engages oneself in wrong actions, such as in the case of the 10th man, the disciples hitting their heads against a wall and causing them to bleed. But in the case of Jivas, it is intense activity in the world, that is outward movements towards the objective pleasures, and which is caused by Vikshepa. It is mentioned as Avrutehe Karyam, caused by the Avarana, the veiling, prior to the arising of discriminative knowledge. Inquiring in an improper method leads to Ajnana and Vikshepa, and it is explained in the verses to come. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, madam, for a nice explanation. Although you are a master and a teacher in Sanskrit, skillfully you have minimized the use of Sanskrit words. At the same time, you've explained. This is the objective. Teachers have to make your own understanding. What Ramaji has also done is, we have taken only selected verses and we leave some verses in between because the teacher who has selected these selected verses find that there could be, I mean, if you were, there could be some amount of repetition. But Ramaji has gone to explain all of them. But when you're trying to explain all of them, you will have to listen to this once again. And when you listen to her at the time of the final recording on Saturday, many of these thoughts will be very clear. And if the class goes on for too long, our attention also will come down. So I will stop at this stage. I will keep it open for a few minutes for discussion before we come to my favorite Gita verse, and we conclude our class with that. Is there any discussion that we want?
Sir, I have one question. Although the ignorance, it was talked about, we are caught up so much in the Vyavaharika, and we don't even realize that we are covered by the ignorance.
Very true, sir. That is why for all students of Vedanta, our teacher has given us one formula which we have to practice. If you don't practice, it becomes difficult. That formula is called port. We may be in our families, we are all grihasthas, we assume various responsibilities, but we have to work on port. Port means possessions, obligations, relations, and transactions. We learned during the COVID period that we could survive very well without doing all this running around and travel and so much things. So we have an idea that our life can still go on. And if I have to focus on Paramarthika, I have to gradually withdraw. Those of us who are a little older, now we come into what is called the Vanaprastha stage. And in the Vanaprastha stage, gradually learn to hand over whatever responsibilities you have to others. Because if you're holding on to responsibilities and monitoring things on a day-to-day basis, then we will not be able to get time for Paramarthika. We have to let go of our possessions. Then who's going to take care of us? Use, of course, common sense. Protect yourself with whatever your requirements. It is not that you are handing over everything, but then wisely hand it over to whoever can take it responsibility, all your possessions, obligations, relations, and transactions, and get more and more time for Paramarthika. I will request, the Bhagavad Gita is always so beautiful. Shiv Kumar, we'll always have one Gita verse to conclude our classes. Shiv Kumar, please.
I have chosen the 5th verse from the 6th chapter. I found it very applicable to many of the thinkings. The verse is Uddaret Atmanam na Atmanam avasadayet Atmaiva Hatmano Bandhur Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha. Friends, if you have ever felt that only destiny, fate, prarabdha karma, etc. are the cause for the state of our life and fortune, then this is the verse and we need to pay attention to this. This verse is an open declaration of Lord Krishna that the possibility, potential, and resources to strive for and achieve self-elevation are available in adequate measure within all of us. The bodily limitation of the lower self are nullified the moment we tap into this inner potential to attain whatever we aim to achieve. It is true that prarabdha karma, whether punya or papa, is responsible for the current body, life, and its influence on our destiny. But it is not the only factor. Here, Krishna is introducing another important discipline, which is self-effort, free will, or prayatna. Human beings are blessed with free will, which is absent in plants and many animals. No doubt, our upbringing, circumstance, etc. are contributory factors. But none of this can take away the intrinsic potential in every one of us in carving out our own future. The triad, the doer, the enjoyer, and sufferer, is a product of ignorance of ultimate truth. We should strive to become a karma yogi, as we have learned in the previous classes. This alone will determine the outcome. Next slide, sir. Krishna exhorts us, Uddaret Atmanatmanam Avasadayed. Here, Atma means our own instruments, body, mind, sense organs, and intellect complex. Every sense organ, mind, and body should be healthy and function in a concerted and well-coordinated manner for intellectual clarity of our life's goal. Just as the picture shows in a formula car, all the people have to work in a concerted manner. First, we must refine our sense organs and then develop a restraint over them. We must integrate the body with the help of the body itself, refine our mind with the help of the mind, refine our intellect with the help of the intellect. Integrating the instruments with the help of the very instruments themselves is Atmanam Uddared. The integral process will then result in the desired improvement, strength, and cohesion of our own instruments for attaining the goal. Next slide, sir. This is an example given in Kathopanishad, where the body is compared to a vehicle or a chariot. The sense organs are compared to the horses or the wheels of the car. The mind can be compared to the reins or the steering. Intellect can be compared to the charioteer or driver. Krishna says, fine-tune your equipment. Next slide, sir. Na atmanam avasadayed means never weaken the instrument by negative attitude, self-diffidence, inferiority complex, pessimistic thoughts, etc. But be optimistic. Developing self-confidence is self-effort. Atmaiva hyatmano bandhu. You are your true friend. Atmaiva ripuratmanaha. You alone are your enemy too. For one with sufficient self-control and orientation, his self will be a friend. For one devoid of self-control and self-orientation, he himself will be his enemy. Krishna's call is thus to elevate oneself by himself. Never should anyone on any ground degrade himself at any time. He is addressing those fortunate who will accept free will. This exhortation for self-effort and self-elevation is in continuation to Krishna's teachings in the earlier chapters. Next slide, sir. Elaborating prarabdham can be punya or papa prarabdham. Punya prarabdham, prarabdha karma, will influence the mind of the person in such a way that he will realize and use his free will, and he will not allow destiny alone to determine the future. In case of papa prarabdham, the effect depends on the intensity. If the prarabdham is weak or durbala, it can be nullified with karma or good deeds. For madhyama prarabdham, a strong free will can reduce its impact. If prarabdha is prabala or strong, the very destiny itself will influence the mind of the person that he will not accept free will and instead resign himself to his circumstance with full conviction that circumstance is preordained and beyond his control. Imagine if we are caught in a cyclone that is prabala prarabdham. We can neither prevent, control, but we can still prepare to face it. I conclude by quoting. Next slide, sir. The sublime and categorical message of our supreme scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Elevate yourself by yourself. The Bhagavad Gita beckons us to improve ourselves. Raise yourself by yourself. Do not let down yourself by yourself. It is the self that gives respect to the self, and it is the self that deceives the self. Yourself is your friend. Yourself is your enemy. It is you who need to decide whether to raise yourself or let yourself down. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, Sir, for giving us a very inspirational message from the Bhagavad Gita, especially when you're going through all these forms of difficulty. Panaga, please.
Thank you very much, dear speakers, and Dr. Hegde sir, for explaining the various stages of our evolution from samsari to Jivan Mukta, from the experience to the experiencer. Sincere thanks to all present here for joining us in this satsanga. Our next class, which will be a formal recording of the verses presented in today's class, is on Sunday, 9th July at 5 p.m. Kindly note, it's not on Saturday. It's on Sunday, 9th July at 5 p.m. Thank you. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.